he's on this quest to find the alchemist too.
Right.
When he finds the alchemist, what does the alchemist say to the Englishman?
He wasn't ready for it, right? He wasn't.
I mean, he basically says, okay, now your next step is to go back home and
Phails at philosophy.
do this basic first process,
yeah.
which you haven't done yet, right? You know, like,
Yeah.
Anyway,
He doesn't take him on board.
it was basically like, go back home and learn how to turn lead into gold, and then you can come back and talk to me, right?
Right. Because right. But he brings on Santiago.
But he brings on Santiago and takes him.
Santiago, well, he gets mentored, right? About reading the sand dunes.
Right. No, and he does supply Santiago with kind of this whole world of alchemy, right?
Yeah.
And kind of the framework.
Because he didn't even know anything about an alchemist until then, right?
Yeah. And
then he's like, now he knows about an alchemist.
And he says, hey, in this one book, I read about this alchemist that had visited Europe, this Arabic alchemist. And he lives at the Al Fayoum Oasis. And people say that he's 200 years old and he's able to transform metal into gold.
Right.
And then they head out, right?
Right. And they talk. They talk along the way. Does he give him the book?
Yeah, and he's like, I don't get this book. And then he gives him the Urim and Thummim, those stones, the black stone and the white stone.
Yeah, the two
which
stones.
He kind of like, yeah, and those are a thing that come back again and again in like Mormonism, in the history of spirituality. And
so these stones have relevance beyond this book?
Yeah, they're these kind of mythic stones that like let you interpret occult secrets or spiritual secrets, or
it's like the
they're like keys to,
it's like the Mormons seer stones.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. And I do think they're identified because they're biblical as well.
Yeah.
They're identified with that in Mormonism, with these two in Mormonism as well. But again, in kind of Rosicrucian literature and stuff like that, you find this come back again and again in alchemical literature, that there's these seer stones that let you interpret and read things.
Yeah.
Here they're kind of like, he kind of like tries to work with them and then forgets about them and puts them away, and then they come out like they fall out.
Didn't the robbers find them or something? And it's like it meant something to them. It ended up playing a role.
They do come back, yeah. But they're introduced as these kind of key things, but they're not that key.
Yeah.
Throughout. Which is part of what's interesting to me is there's a whole apparatus of spirituality around this journey. Whether it's
the King of Salem,
the soothsayer, the kind of biblical narratives that come in, the Islamic framework,
going on the Mecca,
the alchemy with the philosopher's stone, and these seer stones, and like all of these things they come in like they're important, right? They're these key things. This is the key to understanding this, is like this ancient alchemical text. And part of the lesson seems to be that they're kind of a necessary part of the landscape, but fundamentally unimportant.
Yeah,
right. They're
you have to spend time with them, but they're not going to give you the answers. The answers are revealed through the time you spend.
Right. And it to a certain extent, it doesn't matter what of them you are. Like, this is really important to this person. This is important to this person. It may or may not be important to you. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. But ultimately, the figuring it out is the journey that is teaching you the wisdom, which is like, if the treasure is anything, it's that. I don't think this book is trying to tell us, hey, go on crazy spiritual journeys across the world because it's going to make you fat cash, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not
true.
That's not the story here.
No.
I don't even get the sense that when he comes back home to the treasure, there's not a lot of spending time on that. There's just
he doesn't talk about him buying a castle.
He's back home, and the treasure is he's probably got enough to make his life work, right?
And buy the sheep bag.
And go write Fatima and say, hey, I'm set up in Andalusia, come, or like, I don't know, like if he's going to go back to the Oasis, because she was also kind of like, what? This is my home. Why would I want to leave here?
Yeah. And she's like, I'll let you go do your thing. That's what us ladies do.
Right.
We let our men go on adventures. And so the Englishman seemed like a peer to his.
Right.
And I think I mentioned this before. It seemed like their major difference was book learning versus experiential learning.
Right.
And then,
Although there is a level at which the book learning is important as a kind of experience, not the details, right?
right.
The books are not
Gets you to the world. It gets you to the practice in life.
well, and certain kinds of recognition that are like, here's the passage I'm thinking of. This is, well, I guess it's on 83 in mine. They were very strange books. They spoke about Mercury, salt, dragons, and kings, and he didn't understand any of it.
Yeah.
But there was one idea that seemed to repeat itself throughout all the books. All things are the manifestation of one thing only. And that's what he comes back to again and again, is this monism, this sort of non-dualism, that everything is interconnected. And metaphysically, like, so I take away this, like, it doesn't matter, right, what the journey is, etc. The fatalism of it, I resist that. I mean, and I don't resist it totally. There's a way to think about this that makes sense to me. But the way we often think about fatalism is that, like, hey, there's this thing you got to get to, right? Right. And it's like, what's confusing about me is, like, it projects the future like it's a thing that's there.
Right.
But by the nature of being
when
the
you
future,
do it, you
it's
make
not.
it there.
Right.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't really matter. What matters is a recognition of the unity of things, that things come together in a way. But that, I mean, coming back to some of what you were saying earlier, what is it that unifies your experience? What is it that makes a world, a total world, a unity? I mean, if you think about it, the only common thing to all your experience is you.
Well, yeah.
It's that you're living a life. And yeah, whatever choices you make, those are the choices you make. And the world does what it's going to do. The world worlds, right? The world does its thing.
Yeah.
And you can either choose to embrace that and love it and live it and experience it in all its trials and celebrations, or you can choose to resist it and reject it.
Yeah.
And try to divide it up into these little pieces that you think are at odds with each other. And they are on some level, but on a certain level, they're not, because what unifies experience is you experiencing the world over the course of a lifetime.
Yeah, we're crunching the numbers in here.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We're making sense of it.
Right. And there's one life that takes place over time that is your thread in the universe, right?
Right.
And that's not just you crunching it at a moment, but the reality that you're making a journey through life that ultimately will result in your death.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a finitude to that. But there's something fundamentally real and unified about that. That's how I experienced that sort of sense of unity. I don't think that's what the Coelho is trying to say, right? Let me be clear. Like, I think he's got more of this kind of metaphysical notion that is there, I think, in a lot of the alchemical texts, of kind of the one is the many and the many is the one, which I find is an interesting thing to think through, even if I don't read it in quite that fatalist way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No,
Tangent.
No, I'm chewing on that. The next place they get is the Oasis.
Yep. Then they get to the Oasis.
This Oasis, and that's where he helps the Englishman find the Alchemist.
Yeah, and then just spends a lot of time kind of in the drama of the Oasis and meeting Fatima.
Yeah. And it almost seems like he might stay there for a while.
Yeah.
He does stay there for a little while.
Yeah, he's there for a while, and there's kind of like, and then he meets the Alchemist eventually.
He does.
That's when he's at the Oasis. But the alchemy is south of the Oasis. Like, I don't remember exactly what happened. There was a sense in which the Alchemist meets the Englishman, but I don't think we ever see the Alchemist at that scene. If I remember, it's just that the Englishman met the Alchemist.
Right.
And then
it's like the Alchemist came up to Santiago almost, or is that one like?
Yeah, I can't remember if Santiago saw him then or later when he really encounters the Alchemist, if that's the first time he meets him. But at a point, that becomes a relationship that's important to. And again, this is also interesting. Santiago, we know his name's Santiago because he's introduced that way. And then the book, I don't think ever refers to him as Santiago again.
Really?
It just refers to him as the boy.
Oh, the boy. Huh.
So there's a love. When I finished it, I was like, does that boy have a name?
And you have to go to the front to
Right.
remember that it's Santiago.
You're right. Yeah, I don't know what to do with that.
The boy.
The boy.
They're constantly bringing us back to his stage of life.
Yeah, even though
immature.
this seems to be years of journey.
It does.
Like he seems to be growing.
Yeah, he's
up
at the glass shop for a long time.
But I think part of it again is if we're looking at that traditional Hindu 4 phases of life, there is a way in which he is in that he's in the student phase.
Right.
Right. He's here to learn, right?
Yeah, he's not mentoring folks. He's really finding out.
I mean, he's mentoring the crystal shopkeeper on practical things.
Yeah,
right?
but yes,
not on the
yes.
deep wisdom.
Right.
Yeah. So he meets the alchemist and then
Meets Fatima.
And then things get pretty crazy because the alchemist is a wonder worker.
He has a dream, right, about a war.
Right. And interesting. I hadn't even thought about the fact that that's another dream he has.
Another dream.
Like the first dream, but this dream is a dream that they're going to be attacked.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, no, we wouldn't be attacked because everyone has this agreement that we're like, this is a place where we don't attack.
Mm-hmm.
But we better take you seriously. And then he gets to that situation with there's 2 times when the king is like, or the chieftain is like pretty brutal, right? He's like, so we're going to get all the weapons ready, even though it's against the rules because of your dream. And if they show up and they attack us, we'll be ready because you dreamt that you told us about this.
Yeah.
But we don't draw weapons unless we're using them.
Yeah. If they don't show up.
If they don't show up, we got to use them on
you.
We're going to use them on you.
It's like,
and he's like,
stakes are high, boy.
Right? He's like, crap.
Dang,
Just because I got a dream and I went on
I'm
this
just
journey.
sharing a dream, dude.
Right?
Why y'all gotta be so?
Well, and it was the alchemist who convinced him to go talk to share the dream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or was it the Englishman, like one of them. But yeah, so he does that, and then luckily there's an attack, and they kill everyone.
Luckily,
Like and it's like there's this. I find this scene weird because they're like, we hit all the kids, we hit all the women. They didn't see any of this go down, and no one would have known if there was attack, except there's like 500 bodies littering the oasis.
oof.
Like, and I just thought about those kids and the women of the oasis that are supposed to be, insulated from all this, coming out like they're like, all right, all it's clear, and they come out and there's just these dead bodies of people who attacked, and they're like everyone else cleaning their knives.
Oh my god,
That's got to be its own kind of trauma.
right. Right.
Yeah, and then they get it. How does it end up being that they decide that he has to turn into the wind?
He has to do that. Here, the alchemist and Santiago are caught by the tribesmen, where Santiago is asked to turn into the wind. I don't remember why.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I think the alchemist told him told the tribesmen that he was a great man.
Right. Like that he's like, one of those
He's a magical dude.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he's got to turn, and then he
gets a couple days or something. He gets some
he's
time.
got like 3 days.
He's got to like think about it.
And then he does go into this like blown out, like super mystical. I talked to the entire universe, and I went and
he has something.
And I talked to like the hand of God, and
man, they're telling you you're gonna die if you don't turn it into wind.
Right.
You start talking to people.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know what I would do if someone was like, hey, Phil, we need you to turn into wind.
It is crazy.
You got a couple days to get there.
Right. Yeah. This is crazy.
You tell 100 people to do that. I bet you 100 of them aren't going to be able to turn into wind.
Right.
But it'd be nice to find out what those 100 people did from the point where you told them they've got to do it or they're dead, and then
I don't know if it'd be nice. It might be interesting.
Yeah, it might not be nice. Like, how do they spend that time? Or were they like going into card catalogs from like they get some microfiche out there? Like,
and I'm sure some of them are like, I'm not turning into wind.
Oh, they just like abandon it.
I'm not going to worry about this, and I'm just.
I got 3 days.
I got 3 days to live, so I'm going to like find the place. Whether it's like, I really just want to sit for 3 days and listen to some good jazz and chill out, or I want to go do that adventure I've been. Yeah.
You don't think a percentage of them are bound to want to figure out how to do this wind transfer?
Right. I mean, like if you were told that you had 2 months to live, and there was some seemingly impossible thing at the end that if you achieved,
You get to live.
you get to live. How would you react? Would you pursue that thing, or would you say that thing's impossible?
I don't know. 2 months. What else are you gonna do? You might as well give it a shot.
Yeah, it's curious, right?
I don't know. Yeah, would
Like,
you just go on an adventure, have fun, love?
Well, and it's kind of
with
that
your
thing
friends,
when you're facing death, how much of it is then the possibility of death? How much should you be fighting death, and how much should you be accepting it
Yeah.
for the life you have?
And if you fought it, you might live longer.
You might live longer, but if you don't, but if you spend all that time fighting it and you don't
Live
succeed,
longer.
then you lost the last 2 months of life to this useless endeavor.
How do you want to spend your days? Yeah, it's the journey and the friends you make along the way. So it's like, which one of those would best serve you? I mean, if you find that wind transformation protocol, like,
I mean,
you're set.
Yeah, I mean, not only do you get to live, but you also got to turn into the wind.
Which, that's pretty cool. And it says he did it, which I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he did it. Santiago's conversation with the wind, the sun, heaven, and the hand that written all. Yeah. And then after this, he finally makes his way to the pyramids, and he's digging for them, and the folks come up and beat him and rob him. And they take the gold that he'd gotten from the alchemist. His cut.
You know, it's interesting. It never says he turned into the wind.
I thought he did turn into the wind.
That's implied, but it doesn't say that, right? So what happens? He learns to speak the language of the world.
Uh-huh.
And then the sun tells him to speak to the hand that wrote it all.
Mm-hmm.
The wind screamed with delight and blew harder than, the wind keeps getting harder and harder as he's doing all this.
So he made wind occur,
Yeah.
maybe.
The boy turned to the hand that wrote all. As he did so, he sensed the universe had fallen silent, and he decided not to speak. A current of love rushed through his heart, and the boy began to pray. And it's just this level at which he goes into this state of prayer, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it describes it as a unique state of prayer. It's not verbal,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's kind of a meditative state.
Right.
In silence, the boy understood that the desert, the wind, the sun were also trying to understand the signs written by the hand and were seeking to follow the path. He saw the omens, but the hand had a reason for all this, and that the only hand could perform miracles or transform the sea into a desert or man into the wind. Because only the hand understood that all was a larger design that had moved the universe to the point at which 6 days of creation had evolved into a masterwork. So there's this level at which he very much is in this frame of a kind of monotheistic theism, saying there's a hand that creates the world.
Mm-hmm.
And only God creates miracles, right? And then it says, the boy reached through the soul of the world and saw that it was part of the soul of God. And he saw the soul of God was his own soul, and that he, a boy, could perform miracles.
Mm-hmm.
Never says he turns into the wind.
Oh, that's true.
Next, the summum blew that day as it had never blown before. For generations thereafter, the Arabs recounted the legend of a boy who had turned himself into the wind, almost destroying a military camp, in defiance of the most powerful chief in the desert. When the summum ceased to blow, everyone looked to the place where the boy had been, but he was no longer there. He was standing next to a sand-covered sentinel on the far side of the camp.
So it seems like it got windy.
I mean,
he ducked down and
all the
snuck
things
over
say
to the
there
place.
could be that, that's That's the story. But there's nothing in the book that says, and then he turned into the wind.
He turned into the wind. Yeah.
And it describes this scene, and then it's like, and then they rode the entire day toward the end of and they came to the Coptic monastery, and they have a very brief experience at the monastery and ultimately go to the pyramids. And then he starts digging for gold.
He gets beaten up.
And then gets beaten up. And then
one of the robbers had a dream that he shared with them.
Right. And that's when
which lets him know, hey, you need to go back to your home.
And we forgot the part where the alchemist is talking to the chief and is like, hey, I can do miracles. Look. And then he's talking to Santiago. He wants to show him that miracles are possible.
Yeah. And
he turns lead into gold. And it is this classic thing in alchemy of like turning lead into gold is like the big thing. Like, and if you're a real alchemist, you understand that that's turning lead into gold is only important in as much as it shows the miracle you can do.
Yeah.
Right. The spiritual transformation that you undergo.
He could have just turned a bunch of lead into gold and then just gone back home.
Right.
Just like you said earlier.
Right. So so he turns lead into gold, gives him some to restore his money. Yeah. And we know how this story goes, right? And then he digs and he gets robbed and
he goes back home
and really it's just this robber saying, I had this dream about this church in Andalusia. And that's the opening scene is the church in Andalusia.
And the tree.
If we're leaving off the Narcissus prologue.
Yeah.
And then Santiago was like, oh, that's where the treasure is.
Right. And it was.
He
went back there. He dug up this treasure.